Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 99. I'm Brianna Gray, National Press Secretary, and I'm very excited to be joined here today by our campaign manager, Faz Shakir, and one of our campaign co-chairs, Senator Nina Turner, to talk about the Q2 fundraising results that came in this morning. So I want to waste no time and turn it over to Faz first. But I just want to let you know that you should definitely write in and ask us questions, because that's what Twitch is all about. We're being fully interactive today, and we want to know what you have to say, what you think, and have an opportunity to talk to the very top of our campaign about any questions that you may still have. So, Faz, what do we know?
Brianna, thank you. Appreciate it. Hello, everybody. My name is Faz Shakir. I'm the campaign manager for Senator Bernie Sanders. Really appreciate everything everyone is doing out there to support this campaign. If there's nothing else that comes out of this conversation, I hope you will take the message from this gathering, that from the bottom of our hearts, from the bottom of my heart, from Brianna's heart, Senator Turner's heart, all of the campaign staff here at headquarters and around the country who work for Bernie Sanders, we appreciate you greatly. We know what you have sacrificed to be a part of this movement. For many of you, don't have a ton of disposable income, and yet you have decided to give $18, $20, $25 to this campaign. Some of you support Bernie Sanders and haven't given anything in dollar amounts, but you have given your time in making phone calls. You have given your time in knocking on some doors. Some of you haven't even been able to do that, but you have given your time in throwing a tweet in favor of Bernie Sanders, or throwing up a Facebook post, or talking to some friends out there about Bernie Sanders. And we appreciate all of it. So thank you for being part of the movement. This is a people-powered campaign. And if there's one overarching message that we're getting from our Q2 fundraising numbers that the press seems to give a lot of attention to, probably too much attention to, is that the Bernie Sanders movement is strong, it's broad-based, it is based out of the working class of America. If you look at the number one profession of people who gave to this campaign, it was, what was it? Teachers. It was teachers. And when when donors list their profession, they often list their employer. The number one employer listed was? Walmart. I mean, you think of some of those employees at Walmart, at Starbucks, at Amazon, postal workers, people who are, literally, it's the 2 or 3 hours of their time that they're donating in dollar amount to this campaign. And the average contribution to this campaign was $18 over Q2. So, the fact that there were 1 million donations to this campaign across the country, a powerful message. It was almost 1 million donations in Q1, 1 million donations in Q2. From my perspective as a campaign manager, I see a campaign that is strong, it is persistent, it is resilient, and it sets us on a path heading into Q3 and Q4, basically the end of the year, in which we're just going to boom, we're going to grow. One thing to note about our movement is it's a lot of working people, as I mentioned, and that means that I understand as all of us, we got jobs, we live this day to day, but we know that a lot of our base, a lot of our supporters, the people who come out, they haven't even dialed into this race yet. They got a life to live, and we appreciate that. We're thinking about you. I know you're thinking about Bernie Sanders. You're just waiting for the right moment to come out in support of him, and that time might be in December, it might be in January, it might be in February. Whenever that time comes, we hope that we're going to do everything in our power to recruit you, and we hope you'll be there when Bernie Sanders' name shows up on that ballot. Few things I want to say very briefly before I turn it over to Senator Turner, and obviously I just want to echo Brianna's point of question. So please shoot them our way, because we're here for you. I want to make one point and then turn it over to Senator Turner. Why do we care so much about a grassroots movement? Why do we care so much that we're building 99% of our donor base off of low dollar donors? Because it allows us to take on the rigged economic and political system with the freedom that is needed in order to take it on. Bernie Sanders isn't going into the homes of wealthy CEOs and corporate executives begging them for tens of thousands of dollars to bundle for his campaign, because what happens when you do that is you compromise on policy. It means you can't fight for Medicare for all. It means you can't fight to cancel student debt. The ability to maintain the freedom to fight for the working class of America means you cannot compromise yourself by going into the homes of the wealthy elite donors and telling them and making them promises about how they're going to have a say in the policy-making process. That is not something Bernie Sanders will ever do. There are other candidates who do that. And quite frankly, I'll out him right now. Joe Biden went into one of those rooms and told wealthy donors, nothing will fundamentally change for you. The only reason we know that is because there were press in the room when Joe Biden said that. So I'll give credit to Joe Biden that at least he's opened up his fundraisers and there are press in the room and they hear him say nothing will fundamentally change for you. But there are other candidates who are holding closed-door fundraisers with wealthy people, and we don't know anything about what's going on, what they're saying to those donors. So the reason that we care so much about the fact that Bernie Sanders will never be a candidate who compromises by bowing at the altar of the billionaires and soliciting their money to fund this campaign is that things have to fundamentally change for the working class. And the only way you do that is you fight and you build your campaign out of the grassroots. And when you build that kind of a campaign, you also come into the Oval Office with the mandate on behalf of working America to deliver the change you've campaigned on. And with that, I want to turn over to my colleague, Senator Nina Turner.
Thank you, Faz, and amen to what he said. I'm just, this love, baby, love lifted this campaign, is continuing to lift this campaign, and a whole lot of fight. We're going to keep the faith, but we're going to keep the fight. But to Faz's point and how Bree Joy opened up for us, it is vitally important that we do thank you, and this really is the foundation. It is, you are the wind beneath the wings of this campaign. And to the point that our campaign manager made about the fundamental, that the lives of the wealthiest among us will not fundamentally change. If nothing fundamentally changes for multimillionaires and billionaires, then nothing fundamentally changes for you and your family and your community. We need things to fundamentally change, and this is what this campaign has always been about. That's what Senator Sanders is about. That is why that hashtag, not me, us, is so important, and it is the strongest foundation of this campaign, because it's not about the senators, not even about us who have the privilege to be able to work on such a monumental campaign, but it really is about you. It is about us together moving this country towards that political revolution that is going to be necessary to get the change that we all so desperately need in our lifetime and also for future generations to come.
I think that's really beautifully put. I want to bring in some of the people from Twitch. Someone just commented from Greenville, South Carolina, named Lucia Messina. Apologies if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Who said, "I just left the HQ in Greenville, called and donated. Go Bernie team." Thank you so much. We really appreciate all of that grassroots support. I had a young man in my mentions on Twitter today who said that he's been giving $100 a month ever since Bernie announced. And when I responded to his tweet and said, "Thank you so much," he was like, "Oh gosh, this made my day," because I think that people don't really expect, we're in this kind of new world where you don't necessarily expect to be interacting so directly with people, members of the campaigns and people who are running them and working on them. And so I'm really happy to be working on a campaign that is doing things like having these Twitch streams and engaging in the podcast format and, doing all the things that we do to reach out directly to the people, because it does really help to drive home the point that this is a people-centered movement, and that I hope that we don't feel like there's so many barriers between us and the people who are contributing and doing the work on the ground to make the goals and objectives of this movement a real reality.
One of the key pieces here, so I'm trying to jump in here on this point, because I think that one of the reasons we care so deeply about doing this kind of working through this kind of medium and the podcast and all these other channels is we know that many in the establishment corporate circles, the elite circles, are not people who always give a fair shake to Bernie Sanders. They tend to see him through the most skeptical of lenses. We know that when he announced in 2015, many people said he didn't even stand a chance. He wasn't going to amount to anything, and he builds a campaign that surprises and shocks a lot of people in the media circles. And then here it comes in 2019, and this time around, what happens is, oh, let's write him off. The revolution's dead. It's all over. It's fading. And we see this kind of skepticism of him. It's been there for years. And one of the things that we know we need to do on this campaign is try to talk directly to voters, because it is the base. We know that this campaign is trying to do something very different than most other campaigns. We're trying to build a working class movement, a revolution that will deliver transformational change. And when he's in the office, Oval Office, when he's President of the United States, we would also conduct ourselves in a different way. We would govern in a different way that conceives of the people-powered movement being a part of the policy change. And so when you try to bring about that kind of a bold vision, it's hard for elite circles to see it, and that's why we got to talk directly to voters.
Amen to that. And you are his only special interest. I mean, imagine that.
Yeah.
You know, as Faz opened up, that he is not holding these big money fundraisers at people's houses and promising them things, and to your disadvantage for their advantage. When all is said and done, you are ultimately his special interest. He won 22 contests, I believe, in 2016, 13 million votes. And more than that, he did create the political revolution that he had been talking about on the campaign trail in 2016. He actually did what he said, which is create that kind of revolution and continue to keep you in his mind's eye. And that is how we are going to change this nation. When millions and millions of people, I want you to close your eyes and envision he's saying this, when millions and millions of people come together, we will have the political revolution. This is huge. Yes, it is huge. I need to work on my Bernie Sanders impersonation. Senator,
we got to get James to tell me in
That's not bad. That's not bad. That's not bad. Just work on it a little bit.
A little bit. And to Brianna's point, I want to say on Sunday, you know, I got out there and I'm on my Twitter. Yes, I do my Twitter. Trying to keep it PG these days. But, you know, I encourage people to give more. I said, this is it, FEC tonight. And people were engaging, and I couldn't keep up.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank you all, people screenshotting that they had donated or telling me, I just donated, or I just donated again.
Yeah.
And I could not keep up. So for all who donated that I couldn't personally thank you on Twitter because there were so many of you, we are really here to say thank you.
Yeah. Well, to that end, your point about being on Twitter and always kind of being plugged in, Fallon Jacobs on Facebook asks, do y'all even sleep? Thanks for fighting the good fight for us.
That's not a real question. You guys are nice. But I will say a thing real quickly about this. I mean, Senator Turner's been traveling the country with Bernie Sanders. I've been working with him for a few months now. That guy, I don't think he sleeps. He works so hard. He's out in Iowa right now. I think he's going to be live in an hour or so. Like in the course of 4 or 5 days, you'll see him in New Hampshire, then Iowa, then in Nevada, and then out into California, and then
South Carolina.
It's just a constant go, and you give him 2 events in a day, and he says, "Why aren't there 5 events in a day?" Right. We're just trying to keep up with him. Honestly.
Listen, I don't even wear high heel shoes anymore. Starting in 2015, I wear a whole lot of Converse.
Don't you have some high heel Converse shoes. Those? I saw some cute wedges.
I do got some wedges, baby. Got to work that fashion. But you know, as you are absolutely right. And what the senator does, though, and all of us have interacted with him in this way, he'll say, "How you doing? How you doing, Faz? How you doing, Nina? How you doing, Rachel?" He wants to know how we're doing, and we're really focused on him because the candidate, he is our candidate. He is the symbol for what the change is going to be in this country. When he is in that Oval Office, he's serving for all of us, and so we're always concerned about him because there's only one him. There's a lot of us, but he does really, really care about this movement. This is coming from his heart. I always say that the senator has heart-soul agreement, and that heart-soul agreement is real. You can take that anywhere you want, to the bank, to wherever. His heart-soul agreement is real, and you will not find any candidate. And as the senator says, all fine people, but there's only one person that is absolutely going to go ham on this system, and that is Senator Bernie Sanders.
So there is only one Bernie Sanders, and yet he's not always able to answer every question in the world. Thankfully, we're here. So we do have a question about actually, Medicare for all, which we all know is kind of the linchpin policy that's most associated with Bernie Sanders, and something that he has pushed the entire field to the left on since 2016, so that now it's basically a litmus test for the Democratic Party, thankfully. But someone named Warshade on YouTube has asked, My friends struggle to understand why a single-payer system would save them money. They think the tax increase is a deal breaker. How could I better explain the policy to them? This came up a little bit in the context of the debate, right?
Sure.
And I think that the point that sometimes gets lost, and the point that should be made most strongly, is that people will be paying less.
That's right.
You are going to be paying less overall because you won't be paying those high premiums, high deductibles, co-pays, and all the other costs that go along with having insurance, which ultimately result in something, a poll came out, or rather a study came out from the People's Policy Project today that showed that 25% of Americans in the past year have gone without health insurance and have had some interruption in their health insurance. And we all understand that when you switch jobs, as many of us do, since the average American has 12 jobs before the age of 60, that those often are accompanied by lapse in health insurance as well.
Okay.
So not only are you getting full coverage and better coverage, you are paying less because you are no longer expected to pay increasingly rising high cost of deductibles and all the other costs that are taken out of your paychecks to pay for the inadequate insurance that you're getting now. So even if your actual tax amount goes up somewhat, the overall amount of money that is going out of your paycheck on a regular basis is lower, and you are saving costs on an individual basis.
Can I tell you a story?
Mhm.
I was traveling with Senator Sanders, I think, to Iowa. We were on an airplane, and there was a person in the last row who started to have a seizure. And we got off the plane, and Senator Sanders, of course, he's like, did you see what was going on back there? And I was like, yeah. And so because we all had to stay on the airplane while they took this person off, and he said, I hope that person's okay. And I was like, Senator, don't you ever do you have this same sick feeling that the first question I ask myself is, I hope that person has insurance? Isn't that like a crappy? And we started talking about it. I was like, there's something messed up in the system when you have to say, instead of like worrying about that care of the person and hoping that they're okay, I hope that they had insurance, because if not, they might have just set themselves up for medical bankruptcy just because they might have had an issue on a flight. And people understand out there, they have all kinds of experiences with the healthcare system, that they all know that corporate greed is what governs the damn system. And until you get corporate greed out of it, they are going to find ways to bilk you, to stop you from getting care when you need it most, to overcharge you, and to find ways to, quite frankly, screw you until to pad their own pockets. There's a reason why the CEOs of all these health insurers make hundreds of millions of dollars. It ain't because they're delivering quality care to every person in America. Until we all reckon with the fact that we have a healthcare system that is governed by corporate greed, and that we need to really root that out, we're never going to fundamentally solve that problem.
It's true, Faz, and you're asking for a reimagining. I mean, that's really what we're asking for here. And for folks to think about, you're paying a private tax. So think about your health insurance, even though it comes out of your paycheck, if you're blessed enough to have a job that has health benefits, you are already paying a private tax right now, but you're paying that tax to the health insurance industry. So reimagine if then this lesser tax that gets you more of a benefit. You don't have to worry about a catastrophic incident happening to you or your family. You don't have to worry about those copays, those deductibles, the premiums. Instead, it's on the public side instead of the private side. So what I say to my sisters and brothers out there, you're already paying a tax. It's a private tax that enriches the CEOs of these healthcare companies, and it does nothing for your quality of health. In fact, I want to add a story to this too. A friend of mine was just sharing this with the senator. We were just in Cincinnati, as you know, and the senator spoke to the Black Publishers Association there. And this person is solidly in the middle class, and he was feeling ill, like severely so, and he went to the emergency room. And they did his diagnosis and everything, but before they would take it a step further, he said they came into his room with a credit card, and the everything to say, we need more payment. So we did a diagnostics on you. We have some test results, but before we can take this to the next level, it's going to cost you $750. And if you can't pay the $750 right now, you can pay later, but we're going to charge you 10% more. In an emergency, wrap your minds around this. I didn't say a random routine appointment with your doctor. I said he went to the emergency room. He was having a medical emergency, and they paused on his treatment to tell him how much it was going to cost him today if he could afford to pull out a credit card, and if he couldn't, then he was going to be charged 10% more. All of that goes away with Medicare for All.
Yeah, that's a really good story to push that point. I want to ask you, Senator Turner, somebody on here named Rudy from Twitch asked about whether he thinks that as a result of the debate there'll be any change or increase rather in the number of minority voters that are pro Bernie. And I've seen this kind of question bandied around about kind of framed in that way, framed in terms of kind of less what are you doing to appeal to minority voters than do you think you've done something, that will result in a change in these kinds of numbers. And that framing never has sat particularly well with me, right? So I want to kind of put the question to you differently. Do you think that the debate will have any effect on those numbers? And kind of more pointedly, what do you think Bernie Sanders' platform is offering to diverse voters who are looking for a candidate right now?
Well, it's not even just the debate. I mean, that debate, just like these polls, are just one snapshot in time. But throughout the senator's career, from 19 years old to the age that he is right now, he has been on the mission for social justice, economic justice, political justice, environmental justice. That is just who he is. So let's take the Medicare for All as the perfect example, since we are on that, and what that would mean to communities of color. But let me just use the African American community for an example, if I might and if I may. We know that Black women's maternal death rates are higher than any other group in this country. Imagine what a Medicare for All system would do for Black women in this country. Black women are underinsured if they have any insurance at all. Too many Black households, by example, disproportionately are headed by Black women who have these complications exacerbated, whether it's in healthcare or also in pay. So imagine what stability African American households could have with Medicare for All. On the other side, on the birth side, in terms of birthing the baby into the world, the death rates, the maternal, the infant mortality rates, if you will, of Black babies are higher than any other group. Imagine what that would look like if we had a Medicare for All system. So we can talk about that. We can talk about the prison industrial complex. Look, the Black community cares about everything that everybody else cares about, but we do know disproportionately we are overrepresented in a criminal justice system that is unjust towards Black, towards brown, towards indigenous people, and towards poor people in general. But we have a senator who says, you know what, doing away with the private prison industry because nobody should make a profit off of the backs and the misery of other folks. And oh, by the way, it's the same industry that's housing our immigrant folk, our sisters and brothers, and particularly the children in conditions that are unfit for anybody. So from a ethnic or racialized lens, even his Thurgood Marshall quality education plan that he just released in South Carolina about a month and a half ago, he is the only candidate dealing with segregation head on in that bill, increasing the federal government's commitment to IDEA, that is the funding that goes to our children who have some special needs. The government promised to fund that at 40%. We barely getting at 30%. The senator has affirmed in that particular plan that he will fund IDEA full funding. And when you are Black or brown and you have some kind of special need, it is even all with the racialized nature of this nation. All of those things are compounding factors to the negative in terms of your quality of life. So Senator Bernie Sanders, if you care about justice, be it environmental, be it economic, political, racial, social, then Senator Bernie Sanders is your champion. He is your candidate.
Yeah. So, Brianna, you were raising this point on canceling student debt or raising the living wage, the disparity within the disparity that exists in the African American community.
Absolutely. Black women, for example, hold the largest amount of student debt compared to any group in this country. And the average, I think, gap between Black students and white students when they graduate is about $7,000, and it widens to about $25,000, I believe, within 12 years of graduation. So what's happening is that Black students disproportionately are not able to pay back their loan debt, and these usurious interest rates at 7.5, 8% that some of us are paying make it so that those balances grow exorbitantly. And we just released this morning the new episode of the podcast, Hear the Burn, which is all about the subject of student debt. So to the extent that you have any questions or just want to empathize, because we talked to a lot of young people, including a lot of young people here on the campaign, and some not so young people. Yeah. We talked to a retired police officer that I spoke to on the campaign trail, who is a volunteer driver for the campaign, African-American woman, who after retiring from the police force, went back and got her bachelor's and her master's and is currently $100,000 in debt, and that's a debt that's growing and that she'll be paying, for the rest of her life. Not to mention the fact that her kids also have student debt, et cetera, right? So this is really, a national crisis, and it's not something that is, experienced disproportionately by the rich or anything that the TV pundits want to tell you. 80% of student loan debt is held by people who earn $127,000 a year or less. And a lot of the people who are earning $20,000 a year or so are people who feel compelled to work jobs that pay them those kinds of salaries to keep up with their loan debt. And what we hear a lot on today's episode of the podcast is people who say, I would love to work in public service. I would love to help my parents pay their mortgage. I would love to pursue a lot of helping careers. I'd love to be a public defender, but I don't see that as a viable career option because I'm burdened with the anxiety of having over $100,000 worth of debt over my head. I would love to have a kid. I would love to have a mortgage. These are the kind of concerns that people that we spoke to for this podcast episode are going through. So yes, it's something that disproportionately affects African Americans, as are the stressors, right? Mental health issues. That's another thing that you get back to the intersectionality of Medicare for all. So when people ask questions about how does this benefit the Black community, what would minority voters think about this? And I didn't mean to box you out of that, Faz. It's worth noting that you are the first Muslim campaign manager that we've seen in this country, and that's a credit that doesn't get talked about enough. But these are issues that affect all of us in a lot of different ways, and Black issues can't be siloed to just being about criminal justice issues.
That's right, or voting rights. We do care about those things, but we want good jobs and healthy communities just like everybody else. These are issues of humanity that we're talking about right now.
Yeah. Somebody, let's see, Dirty Dog 392 on Twitch asked a little while back, what is the strategy for Bernie going forward to differentiate himself from the rest of the candidates, especially the ones who have co-opted his ideas?
There's only one Bernie Sanders. He got there first. He's been consistent over the course of his lifetime. There's a reason why you'd want to be for Bernie Sanders. One of them is that there's a track record of consistency. You can count on him. Then in addition to that, you talk about getting into the Oval Office and thinking about a movement to create change. He's uniquely suited to do that. That is the way he thinks. It's not that one individual is going to get into the Oval Office and somehow make magic happen. It is to think about the fact that you're going to empower people to be part of the policy change process. That is how, in the midst of Republican control over our government, there were 350,000 workers at Amazon who got a raise to $15 an hour. How did that happen? It didn't happen sitting in a closed-door room in Washington, D.C. The way that happens is literally a movement of ideas, employing the public pressure on Amazon, and it affected the wages of so many thousands of employees. Same with Disneyland and Disney World workers. That is how change could and would happen under a President Bernie Sanders administration. And the last thing I'd say is the movement is succeeding. I mean, we've been talking about it. The Medicare for All support is growing. The support for a $15 living wage is growing. The efforts to raise the wages across America. There's now 6-7 states that have done so. The House of Representatives is going to vote on it and probably pass it soon. In addition to that, you see him working with Republicans on trying to end the war in Yemen. I just think over the past 2 to 4 years since he first announced for president, you've seen a movement that is growing, building, gaining even more support. If you think that has been wonderful, just imagine what's going to happen when he's in the White House.
Amen. And just to add to that, I want to go back to because this point about Senator Sanders, as Senator Sanders right in this moment, if you add up the Amazon workers and the Disney workers, over 400,000 people between the senator and the movement, because that fight for 15, to Faz's point, and the senators, not me, us, you merge him and the people together, baby, and you got magic. Magic that happens for the overwhelming majority of us. Wrap your minds around this. Over 400,000 people got a raise because of the courage of the grassroots merged with Senator Bernie Sanders. And that action happened before it wasn't instant, it was work. But these are the things that he's doing as Senator Bernie Sanders.
At the end of the day, there's two questions that are going to govern this race. I truly believe that. We're going to have a lot of people kicking the tires on a lot of different candidates, and there's going to be ups and there's going to be downs, and we're going to go through 7 more months of this until finally Iowans vote on February 3rd, and then we're going to start this thing for real. But until then, I think people are going to kick the tires on a lot of candidates. There's going to be peaks and valleys. We're going to be steady as they go. We've got a plan. We feel confident that we're going to grow in support over time. We know what our case is to be made, and there's going to be 2 questions that govern this race, I believe, at the end of the day. One is who can beat Donald Trump. And on that one, we know that Bernie Sanders, head-to-head, it does extremely well against Donald Trump. Basically, it beats him in every poll. In Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, those states that you really need to win in order to be in the White House, he does it. The second question is, who do you trust to make the change happen that you so desperately want? And when you take those 2 questions together, who will we put up against Donald Trump on the debate stage? Man, I would love to see a Bernie Sanders versus Donald Trump debate. Who do you want to put up against Donald Trump, and then who do you trust to make the change happen? You blend those 2 questions together, and then you get people voting on that. We feel really good about how that outcome's going to go.
We do, and why would you ever want a copy? Why would you want copies when you can have the original? To the fastest point, there's only one Bernie Sanders. But we get that question all the time. Well, all of the candidates have pretty much taken his agenda. Why do we need him? You need him because he started this conversation.
Yeah.
Had it not been for his courage and commitment and conviction in 2015 and 2016, we would not be having these types of conversations right now. I can guarantee you that. So, original or copies?
Yeah. I want to make sure I get at least one more question in. This one from Jesus Lopez on YouTube, who asks, does a purchase from the Bernie store go to donations? This is a good reminder that there is a donation button on this Twitch thread. And, this, as for all the reasons that Faz articulated earlier and Senator Turner articulated earlier, these donations matter and these small donations matter from you. And answer to that is?
Yes. And also, we're working out. We've heard you guys. I know I get some emails from you like, hey, I want some more stuff in that store.
Water bottles. I saw on Twitter today.
I get them. And we're working on them. The team would be very sad if we didn't tell them that there's more stuff coming in that store. So know that we heard you.
Okay, great. So before we close up, I wanted to make sure there's one point that you made this morning, Faz got across. The part of what's really special about the small donations, it's not just that obviously they're coming from everyday working people, the people to whom our campaign is focused, but also the fact that we have such a large number of small individual donations means that those people can keep giving and that the pool isn't exhausted the way it is for other candidates who have donors who've maxed out and given the maximum amount, and they have to go find new people who are committed to the cause. So I'm really optimistic and feeling very positive about our funding and where we are right now.
Can I say a word about that?
Of course.
So we had 99.3% of our donations were under $100. 99.3%. That's amazing. I mean, that means the room for growth is huge. That means the amount of support is broad. It takes something like 140 donations of $20 to get you to the max level, which is $2,800. So there's a lot of people who can, solicit $2,800, and it takes us more work to reach that amount. But that's okay because that's the way we'd rather build this movement. That's the way we'd win. And one thing I really want to say about the donations is I hope you'll appreciate, we care deeply about making sure that money is wisely spent. And if I had more time, I know we're running out of time, and I don't want to go on a long tangent about this, but I do want you to know that where does that money go? When I give money to the campaign, where's it going? Well, one is, of course, we're paying for staff. We're paying for staff here, headquarters, doing all kinds of work, communications, policy work, organizing work, all kinds of things we're making to make the operations go. We're paying for people out in the states, Iowa, South Carolina, Nevada. We got to have people out there making the case for Bernie Sanders. So there's staff, right? But then you got to have events. We're moving around the country, and those don't come cheap. So you got to move Bernie Sanders around, you got to move some of our supporters around, and we got to put them in venues to make the case for Bernie Sanders. We also got to do a lot of digital outreach and some paid advertising to make sure people hear the message. We are also sending literature out to states and making sure our organizers are equipped with things in their hands to go door to door and make the case for Bernie Sanders. That costs money, but that is what your donations are helping to sustain. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to be competitive. I feel like we're in a very good place right now because of the support we've gotten for this campaign, and I feel really positive about the trajectory this campaign's on. The future is bright.
Yeah.
Amen.
Thank you for that. Thank you both for joining me here tonight on the 99, and I hope this is the first of many such conversations.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you all out there who've donated and who might and who are just here to listen and comment, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye-bye.